So with that, what we're going to do is, well, I got a PowerPoint slide prepared for us. We'll take a look at, kind of deep dive into some of the law that's behind this so we can get kind of updated and familiar with what that looks like. And then a few other items related to that, citing from TML and other legal documents. And then at the end of all that, my idea is I'd like to turn that over to you guys so we can build this product together. And hopefully we have a nice product or two, or maybe even three, it depends how many exhibits you guys come up with, to then present back to council at a regular meeting at the end of the month. So, again, thank you all for being here. Let's have a nice, productive, and well-thought-out meeting here. So, what I'd like to do first is let's open with a prayer. Thank y'all for joining. I will open with prayer. You can stand or sit where you like. Lord, merciful God, grant that we may desire ardently to serve truly, recognize truly, and bring to perfect completion whatever is pleasing to you for the praise and glory of your name. Put my life in order, O Lord God. Grant that I may know that you require me to do what you require me to do. Bestow upon me the power to accomplish your will as necessary and fitting for your salvation of my soul. Grant me, O my Lord, my God, that I may never falter in times of prosperity or adversity, so that I may not be exalted in the former nor dejected in the latter. May I not rejoice in anything unless it leads me to you. May I not be saddened by anything unless it turns me from you. May I desire to please no one, nor fear to displease anyone but you. May all transitory things, O Lord, be worthless to me, and may all things eternal be forever cherished by me. May any joy without you be burdensome for me, and may I not desire anything else besides you. May all work, O Lord, delight me when done for your sake, and may all repose not centered in you be forever wearisome to me. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. So, I'd like to do some introductions real quick. I'm Lawrence McCain, the new city administrator here. I've been here 2 months. I'm enjoying it so far and enjoying all you guys. Thank you for everything you've done for welcoming me here. I will then go into staff. We've got Officer Childress, and then Renee, our city secretary. Who else we got here? Is that it for staff? Okay. We also have Mayor Linda Owens, and then City Council woman Melissa Punch, and then Councilman Justin Richardson. And is there any other councilors? Oh, Ricky Wiggins. Councilmember Ricky Wiggins, and then Graham McGruer, Councilmember. Thank y'all for being here. Okay, so audience members, I'd like to start in the corner. Could you kind of tell us your name?
Hello, Danielle McGruer, 215 Hungry Hill. We're here just to see how this is going to go and things like that. We come to all the city council meetings.
Thank you. You don't have to do it, this is a workshop, but yeah.
Colton McGruer. I'm obviously married to her. Same address. Same thing. We come to all the city council stuff.
Gail Pyle. I'm on the Economic Development Corporation, and I live on Anna Homes.
Royce Wiggins.
Ricky Wiggins.
Judy Talbert.
James Talbert.
Diana Richardson. Jordan Blanco. Dolores Compton.
Michael Bala. Oh, forgot to introduce myself. I apologize. Remember, I was on staff. Sorry. That's Mike Rivera, our other attorney. Sorry.
Got the attorney at this meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Rick and
Aaron Weaver, Chair of the EDC.
Brent McCain.
Sheree McGruer.
Graham McGruer.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate all your time. So, again, thank you all for being here tonight. I'll be leading this workshop, and I have our citizens through an agreed upon procedure. So that's really what we're doing here tonight. All right, so with that, I will take us into the start of our presentation. Okay, so my bets, I'm going to get up. What I put here was just a little bit of a definition. I know you guys can read it, I'll read to you, and if you don't like me reading to you, then just tell me so. You need to say more so that I read. But parliamentary procedures, I took this from good old Wikipedia, and I know attorneys love Wikipedia. And I know they got that a lot. But I really like their definitions. I put it up. So parliamentary procedures. They're accepted rules, ethics, customs governing meetings of an assembly or organization. Their object is to allow orderly deliberation upon questions of interest to the organization, thus to arrive to a sense of will of the majority of the assembly upon these questions. Self-governing organizations follow parliamentary procedure to debate and reach group decisions, usually by vote, with the least possible friction. I like that they added that there, because there's always going to be friction, especially when you're discussing tough items. We discuss a lot of tough items. You got to say that. Governments were responsible for a lot of things. It's a very hard field to be in, but love it. You know. Let's see.
I'm going to give you a mic for it so you can
There it
speak
goes.
into it while we're.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Forgot about that. So let's go ahead and sit back there, but my eyes are pretty bad, so I'm going to walk around. So as we begin, I figured we'd start, and again, let me back up just a little bit. What we're discussing tonight, I already described, but these items, typically cities have already gone through a very long time ago in order to have procedures set in place or some sort of understanding. And I know we have our own flow, but why this is good that we're doing this now is there has been some law changes and updates. I think you mentioned somewhere maybe about 4 years ago or a little more. There was some law updates that.
2020.
Yeah. So some things have changed probably since last time you guys looked at this and considered it, or maybe have been trained on it. So it's good that we're talking about this and gonna get a refresh and try to put something together. So with that, state law. It defines deliberation right here, and I find that interesting. And deliberation to them essentially is an exchange between a quorum of a governmental body and it could be another person. I then go to address. Now the reason why you have address here by Merriam-Webster is address is not defined in this open government code, just deliberation is. So if you go down to address, my mouse is going slowly. You might put a character, that might help. Come on, mouse.
No, it's probably too far from the computer.
It's funny, I was working back there.
Yeah, this is too far away.
You're too far.
You're too far away from your computer.
Yes.
It's right here. Okay, here we go. All right, so address, since it's not defined in the state code, you have to go here. It says to deal with or give attention to direct efforts to communicate directly. So let's go back up to deliberation. Deliberate, it obviously says they're exchanged, right? I mean, it's kind of a back and forth. Address, not so much, just to communicate directly. So moving on, 551.07, this is back to TOMA, Texas Open Meetings Act law. It says governmental bodies shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on the agenda or an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at a meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. Governmental body may adopt reasonable rules regarding the public's right to address the body under this section, including rules that limit the total amount of time that a member of the public may address the body on any given item. highlighted that to just point out this section talks about or deals with something that's listed on the agenda that's been posted. This is now going to our adopted city ordinances. This is kind of really all we have in place in relation to what we're describing. We do have another section in there that talks about good behaviors, and that's why I can describe it or it can be rejected. That exists, but I didn't put that in this PowerPoint tonight. This is the only thing relative that I found in the books. So this says that the presiding officer of the council may recognize for a presentation any member of the public who requests an item be placed on the agenda in accordance with that section. Presentations of a member of the public, whether appearing individually or representing an organized group, shall be limited to 5 minutes, allowing discretion of the presiding officer to reasonably extend time. No person who is not a member of the city council shall address or attempt to address a meeting of the city council unless he is recognized by the person lawfully presiding at the meeting. And then it goes into no disrupting of meetings. So this has been in the books since 1998. And I point that out to say, this isn't surprising me. We've got a lot of things here that are pretty old. I've got a lot of updating to do. And that's just a side of our day-to-day people come in wanting to do, plating, zoning, questions, or blacktop, or whatever else is going on. But we're going to get through it. As they say, how to eat the elephant one bite at a time. But, we do have to update a lot of our ordinances, a lot of our applications. We're going to get through it. Inquiry made at meetings. So this is another provision out of TOMA, Texas Open Meeting Act. It says, at a meeting of a governmental body, if a member of the public or the governmental body inquires about a subject for which notice has not been given, as required by the subchapter, the notice of the provision of the subchapter do not apply to a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, or recitation of existing policy in response to inquiry. Any deliberation of or decision about the subject of the inquiry shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda for the subsequent meeting. So that's the only place there that they decided to go ahead and put in deliberation, and I find that interesting. The other spot was address. But so going back to this, to distinguish, the other one was talking about posted on the agenda as an item. This one's related to not being posted as an agenda item. So those are the rules for such. So basically, if it's not an agenda item, and you come in to speak about it to the council, this is what the council is allowed to do by state law. This is a summary I found by Ken Paxton in relation to, someone requested an AG opinion on something similar, so I took his response and put it up here for everyone to see. And it talks about the same sections that we were just looking at. It says governmental bodies to permit public comment on an item on the agenda for an open meeting either before or during the body's consideration. A government body may satisfy that section by holding a single public comment period at the beginning of an open meeting to address all items on the agenda. And I'm not recommending that, I'm just pointing out what his opinion was. Government Code, subsection blah, 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 authorizes the government body that is subject to its provisions to adopt reasonable rules regarding public rights to address the body, including time limitations. A governmental body may adopt rules capping the total amount of time a member of the public has to address all items on the agenda if the rule is reasonable. So now getting into what we have currently. This is an attendance sheet that we've been using. I don't know how long we've been using it. This is a product that I didn't create, but apparently we've been taking attendance. And hopefully it's been passed around. I don't know if you guys signed up for this, but if you'd like to, please do. I don't know if that's something you guys just started. I can see Jenna got it.
Do you want to get that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, if you don't mind, and just pass it down.
I never saw it.
I know we were not very
You're not
always on the roll
No.
On the table.
I just thought that was if you wanted to speak.
Yeah.
That's the attendance sheet.
you'd like to speak, this is our existing form that's been in place. What I'll say, it's pretty good, but can it be better? I think so. And again, that's kind of part of the things we'll discuss tonight. You know, what do y'all want to see? Is what we want to build. In reality, again, what parameters do we need to stay into such? One thing I'll point out here is it doesn't really distinguish whether you want to speak to an item on the agenda or not. That would be helpful. Yes, sir.
That's just the beginning of the meeting, citizens' comments for 5 minutes, not anything to do with the agenda. That's what that form's for.
Yeah, I think, and I could be wrong, I don't know if you guys meant to use this form in a way, hey, here you go, to basically write in a subject right there, right? And if the subject, I assume, if I'm there and I read that and I see that it's an item on the agenda, I need to ask, would you like to speak at public comments or speak to it at the item when it's being heard? But if it's an item that's not on the agenda, then you need to kind of inform them, hey, you really need to speak at public comments if that's what you like to speak about. But if it is on the agenda, you can kind of distinguish, you want to say it at public comments or you want to say it at the item. So, this form can be a little better in that respect, so it's a little easier for whoever the mayor is running the meeting to distinguish, advising those people what they can and can't do. But anyway, you'll see the 5 minutes there. That's back to our ordinances since 1998. And I'd like to also just point out this, I didn't create this form, but someone put that right there. It's not intended to be an extended discussion or debate. Alright. So I went ahead and emailed TML. We use them for quite a bit, legal services. I asked two things. I asked if they had a sample agenda template for us just to take a look at and consider, because there's so many different agendas out there. And then secondly, simple question, what is their thoughts, legal team of TML, for city council members to engage in dialogue, debate, discussion with members of the audience when they sign up to speak at council meetings? And here's their response. With regard to your question about public comments, if the item that the citizen brings up is something that was not on the agenda, there are only a couple of things a council person may safely say during public comments.
Where are you reading? Third paragraph.
Right
Oh, I
here.
see it now.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. There are only a couple of things that a council person may safely say during public comments and remain compliant with Texas Open Meetings Act, (COMA). A council member may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning that policy regarding the item, or propose that the item be placed on a future agenda. The members should be very careful not to make any other communication because if the item was not on the agenda, council is prohibited from discussing it. And Tom was pretty clear on that. If the item was on the agenda, the city council members should still be very careful engaging with the public. The big question here is whether the time a council member spends speaking will count against the speaker if the city times the speakers, which we have in place at 5 minutes by ordinance. Usually, I think the most conservative advice is for a council member to actively engage with the public as minimally as possible during public comment. And then she shared a link to their Texas Open Meeting Act handbook. Hey, Brian, you think it's all right?
I'm just gonna sit right here.
I think you got a chair right here. Like I said. We're on the workshop, right? Thank you for being here. So this came from Sarah Tompkins, Legal Counsel, TML. All right, moving on. Texas Open Meetings Act. The law also has another provision for it for training. See where it says shall, and everyone who's a council member knows how that goes, and I just want to point that out to everyone. When we read law, even our ordinances, if you look into them, if you see shall, that means shall. They didn't mean to put shall. But if you see may, then that's different. That means the council has a choice. But I point that out because it gets very confusing. We hear it a lot, like, it says here that y'all going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'll go and look. It's like, oh, it says may. I have to explain to them. Council may do something. But if it says shall, then you have to. And this is the state law. So anyway, this is saying that you shall complete a course on training on TOMA whenever you become a new council person. So this is what it looks like. Here's a copy of Linda's. You get a little certificate, pretty neat. Says that you're compliant with Texas Open Meeting Act, that you studied it, you understood it, and you're ready to rock as a council person. So pretty much everyone who's ever been a council person is a council person today and will be a council person in the future. Has to do it by state law. And I'll show it one more time where it says shall. We don't have any other choice. Open Meetings Act training, this is the website. They have a lot of resources on here, but here's where you download their little handbook. This is Kid Paxton, the AG's site, the one who wants these certificates and make sure that everyone's doing what they should be doing. This is the little video that most people watch on the AG's website and then get their certificate. But there are other resources. This is Texas Municipal League's little handbook on open meetings, and they got another one on handbook for mayor and councilors that's generally an explanation of everything. It's a really good resource, even for the public to read. So these things our council has. I shot out an email to everyone like a little over a month ago with a lot of resources on them, including these and other things. But, you know, I got to say, it's a lot of information. Doing this job is drinking from the hose. It really is. Especially for our council people. I feel for you guys. You're doing a tremendous job. I'll tell you, every one of you. But, you know, it's voluntary what you're doing, and you guys are amazing. I have to go back to, go ahead.
We do it for the money.
Oh, yeah. I have to go back to these books and trainings all the time, you know, every day. It just depends what's going on. We'll get phone calls. And I know that you guys do as well, but, you know, I know you have your lives to live.
Let me go over here and watch.
All right. Texas Municipal League's Handbook for Mayors and Council People. I wanted to show you guys what that handbook that we were just looking at, what it says in there. So this is related to the mayor. Under law, mayor is presiding officer of city council. In a capacity as presiding officer, mayor's actual powers in legislative matters can be greater than those of other council members. For example, the mayor can influence the flow of the debate through the power of recognizing council members with motions or statements. Also, mayor rules on questions of procedure at meetings, and those rulings are binding unless successfully challenged by a majority of the governing body. And then finally, a mayor of the Type A general law can formally object to ordinances and other resolutions that were passed.
Excuse me, but what's a type A general law?
It's a form of government that we have here. Whenever it goes back to a certain size of the city. Actually, I'll share it just real quick. I'm glad you said that. If we ever get to 5,000 population, we'll have the choice, if everyone here so chooses, to have an election and go home rule. And we may get there because
What's home rule?
it's another form of government where they have you know, different provisions. They form a city charter, and it's like the constitution of the city. Yes, sir.
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
Just so you know, so general law city, home rule city, one of the things to think about is think about insurance policies, right? Everybody's familiar with that. Where you have like the inclusion policy that says this is what is included in the policy, right? Everybody familiar with those? That's what a general law city is. So we have to look at, so like chapter 22, the stuff that Lawrence is quoting, or it says under the law, that's chapter out of chapter 22 of the local government code. And what that does is that sets up with a general law city type A, which that's the biggest of the we have B and C as well, but then A is the biggest. So general law city is like an inclusion policy. Like we're only allowed to do what the state of Texas allows us to do as a general law city. So the difference with a home rule city is that a home rule city has a charter, which is like a constitution. But in the state of Texas, you have to have at least 5,000 people within your city before you can have an election to decide whether or not you're going to be a home rule city. A home rule city is like an exclusion policy where everything is covered except for what's specifically excluded. So a home rule city can do anything that is allowed under the law, under the global law, as long as the state of Texas hasn't said you're not allowed to do it. So that's the difference of the two. And if you've been watching the legislature over the last few years, home rule cities have actually been under attack from the legislature talking about doing away with them. And I'm talking about because of some of the things that are going on right now. But that's the difference between the municipalities. So if you're a home rule, you can decide what type of government you want. For like example, the city of Houston is a mayor form of government. It's almost like a dictatorship form in Houston. The mayor absolutely runs the city. Most cities have what's called a council manager form of government. Most home rule cities have what's called a council manager form of government. So you have the council, and then your basic one employee is your city manager, and that everything flows through there. We're not allowed, as a general law city, not allowed to have a city manager position. We are by statute a council mayor form of government. And chapter 22 sets out, of the local government, it sets out that the mayor, this is statutory, the state of Texas puts this down in the legislature, that the mayor serves as the chief executive officer for the city and also the chair of the council meetings. So anytime the council meets, the mayor is the chair of that meeting. There are some provisions regarding what you can do. I think was talking a little bit about, it was either in that or something that Lawrence read, that the council can put some ordinances in place that kind of direct where that mayor's authority is, but the mayor is the CEO of the city, which is one of the reasons why the position of the mayor doesn't have a vote except for a tiebreaker. Only the 5 council members get to vote unless there's a tiebreaker. Now, if we wanted to go to, even before home rule, to go to a city manager form of government, so a council manager form of government, we'd also have to have an election to do that.
Wakefield.
Yeah, they do. They have
Okay,
council.
They have council and city manager and their mayor.
Okay. Well, no, they still have mayors. I think
Yeah, they got a mayor.
Waco's a home rule city.
It is, I know.
Yeah, they're. So I'm talking about, but a general law city can have a manager form of government
We're talking about the home
after
rule.
election.
That's what I'm talking about.
What's that?
I'm talking about the home rule. I'm not talking about.
Right. So I'm just saying that if you wanted to have a city, because we don't have a city manager, but if you wanted to have a council manager form of government, we also have that at election, and that's under chapter 25 of the
Yeah, thank you for
But
that.
then,
Appreciate you.
if that happened, the people wouldn't have any say.
You would still,
Council manager.
we would still elect the council members.
Yeah,
And the council members hire the city manager.
Yeah, but the people wouldn't have any say
Can I
other
have
than
her
that.
grab the microphone, please? So that everyone can.
It's all right.
Okay, because it's on, it's on YouTube, so we gotta make sure that everybody's.
Yeah.
I think she's done. Well, I don't have.
And it's a good point, and I'll get us back on track here with this. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's all really good points. So going back again to what Mike was saying, here's a citation to Local Government Code 22. Basically talking about the mayor and in a way the duties. Mayor shall preside at all meetings of the government body of the municipality except for elections. They vote only if there's a tie. So again, this is when you wonder why the mayor has the power to run the meetings. It says it right there in the state law. That's where I want to show you the provisions. So with that, I wanted to point out we are going to make some changes. You know, we're getting this government. I guess updated might be the best way to say. I see a lot of things that I think we can get a little better. So I'm going to try to keep council, up to date on recommendations and progressing this in the correct way. One thing that I'm recommending is, well, we're going to start doing actually, is we've been working very hard at trying to make sure that our agenda packet is posted by Friday afternoon before we get out of here. And we're doing a good job, and Dave's doing really good. I thank her for all of her hard work. What we're going to start doing with that from now on is, as soon as that agenda packet is posted online on our city website, I'm going to start doing savvy citizen notices out to the public. Hey guys, packet's now available. Please go and see it whenever ready. Here's a link, and I'll include the link to the website so you can go look at it as soon as it's up. That's the plan. You'll start seeing that Fridays before the meeting. So hopefully you have it in your hands. And if you've got any questions, and always email. I'm glad we're talking about this because I don't think about everything really. I always email council, hey, if y'all have any questions whenever we shoot this pack out, feel free to get with me Monday all the way up to the 5 minutes before the meeting. Let's go through this. Whatever you want to go through the whole packet, any questions, whatever, let's do it. You may have found something that I overlooked, and let's get this figured out. Who knows? If you just got questions, whatever. But I do, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm glad that I'm talking about it with all of you here.
couldn't find the agenda, and it was on the second page, which I'm not used to, because I hadn't been used to the front page being full.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
I got you. So he was looking for the posting for today for the workshop.
Yeah.
I know the council has been voicing a lot of different opinions about our website. I don't know if we're gonna get a new one or not. Probably will, but we're coming up to budget talks, and that might be one of the items. We got a lot to talk about the budget, so just FYI, just hang tight. Let's see.
She told me it was on the second page, which I didn't know.
Yeah, and that's just a website feature. You know, this website is a little squirrely. We get
Well,
called
you got a
for.
lot of other stuff on there, maybe it needs to go away.
True, true. So the next thing here is our website. Our old agenda. So I just wanted to show you guys. Obviously, this was last month's March. This is the notice for citizen presentations, comments. It says council welcomes comments. At this point, on items not listed on the agenda, speaker must sign up before the meeting begins.
No,
You sure?
yes,
Turn that on.
it's not mine, I'm muting it, but it's not mine.
Speakers are limited to 5 minutes.
It's his appointment.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna stop using it.
You said Lincoln, yes.
I didn't know I was doing that. I will do that.
The other one.
Give him the cat laser.
Yeah.
The council cannot respond to matters not listed on the agenda. So, I think what I wanted to point out to you guys is this is the new agenda that we just rolled out that you saw at the last meeting. Got a little bit updated. The reason is just like everything else, trying to get just more organized, really is all it is. And let me back up to our old one one more time. Well, so what I want to point out, just so you guys are aware, what we were doing previously is for some reason we were adding bold titles to captions. These are items for consideration. We call those captions. Captions must apprise the public of enough information of what's going to be discussed. I've never seen a city that was doing titles to those. I don't know why that was going on. But usually what you see in these bold titles is flow of the meeting. So let me go to that. Just look at this, that everything's kind of bold and jumbled up. Whenever you go to the new one, what we have here is what's in bold is representative of flow to the meeting. And then if it's an agenda item caption, then it's in this format. So I find that this is a little bit easier to follow. Mary's shaking her head that she thinks it's a little easier to follow.
I agree.
Thank you. That's just one of our latest updates. And I'm glad you guys like it, but if not, feel free to let me know. Wanted to share with you guys an agenda from Crawford. So they're a town of 800. And this is what they say for their public comments. Individuals who have signed in before the meeting will have 3 minutes to voice their concerns and issues. The city council nor the mayor can comment on or act on any item that is not on the agenda. Citizens should make comments during this time and not during the meeting. So they're pretty strict there. They got 3 minutes and they say this is the only time you can speak. Not a lot of responding. They're not even allowing you to speak at the item. That's just Crawford.
I disagree with that, but okay.
Yes.
That's Crawford. I disagree with that, but that's Crawford.
Yes. I'm just showing this as a sample.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I got right here. Sample example, just showing some other things that are out there. Let's see. This is a sample of a public comment card that I want to share with you guys. I shared with you guys our one earlier. What I like about this one is it's a little bit more organized, and if you guys are in agreement, I would like to get us something kind of similar. Reason is down here. It says, I wish to address the council within the public input portion of the agenda on a matter that is not otherwise listed on the agenda. That's pretty long for check here if it's not on the agenda. This one is check here if I wish to speak in, you can check support, note opposition to agenda item basically going back to the TOMA that I showed you guys, is this listed on the agenda or is it not? Because the law dictates what you can and can't do in emergency too, and this kind of gives you a clearer understanding. So if you guys are okay with that, I might try to. Yes.
So, I understand the part about it being on the agenda or not being on the agenda, but sometimes in coming to the meetings and hearing the discussions on different items, you might see it on the agenda, but you don't know everything about it until you hear the council talking about it, and then you may have an opinion
Right.
about that.
I agree.
So is that stopping people from saying their opinion?
No. You're right. That's a good point. And
Like, I can read the agenda, but if I haven't been at the meeting and I don't know what the council has discussed and all that, and I get to come to the meeting, I might need to say something. Not, a short thing.
Don't we usually have a portion of public comment with agenda items?
But you don't really know until you've heard what the council is saying.
yeah.
You can read it, but you don't know until you've heard what the council is saying.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Darren, so if
Okay, Joyce was talking to us.
okay.
That's how I feel, is a lot of times there may be an agenda item that I'm against, or I'm not completely in agreement with, or maybe I don't understand it well enough to have an opinion about it. But once I hear the council discuss it, and I hear the public put their thoughts in, then what I was against, I may be for, because of how the council is their discussion goes as to how they're gonna vote. And it helps me to understand it and to decide whether or not it's something I think is good for the community.
We'll let Darren speak, and then Rick, and then whoever else wants to talk, and then Mike says he would like to give us a little information on some of the things that were just said.
Well, I wasn't at the last meeting, I haven't viewed the last meeting, so I feel like I'm kind of neutral in regard to what may or may not have occurred in the last meeting. I want to point out that, when we look at the national government, that we have 435 elected officials. We can't have 340 million people put their 2 cents in, right? It's a representative bubble, right? And that's the same with the state legislature too. 30 million Texans just can't sit there and talk about an agenda item, have the legislatures listen to everything and then start voting on it. But we're a little town, and the majority of us have all known each other for a while, and we're under a different statutory requirement for how we conduct meetings. But I think we're generally all in agreement that the public has a right to speak at the beginning of the meeting if they signed up. And in principle, we all agree probably on that, right? And it's statutory. But then I think I've seen in the past on certain agendas in which the council will discuss an agenda item, and then there will be a section for public comment. Right? And I don't know what was on the last agenda or not, but it would appear to me that particularly on a controversial, now the reason I brought up the national government is the following. You do have representation. Your voice is heard in the city via your elected council members. Right? So one could make the argument that the public may never speak because the elected officials speak for them. Right? That would be one side of the issue. Right? But we're a little town, and we all know each other, and so often there's things that are dear to our hearts that we want to speak at the meetings. So I'm not saying we do that. If we're a bigger town, I don't imagine that Killeen, the public gets to come running in and talk about every agenda. Right? There's just not enough time. Right? They have to do it through their elected officials. But I have seen in the past on city council agendas that we leave room for public comment after we do an agenda item or before it's voted on. Right? Am I wrong? You're not, why are you giving me that look? We have, right? Yeah. So, I mean, we need to decide now whether we're gonna do that or not. I mean, it's part of the purpose of it.
What I'm here for.
No one on the city council or the city employees want to hear what I'm going to say next. But imagine if you're someone in the public, though, and there's something important to you. You come and you speak on it at the beginning of the meeting. It's not going to be an agenda item, if at all, for another month, right? And with the pace of the things that are going on around here, right? I'm going to throw this out there. We might need to have city council meetings in the fall. And you know where I come from, right? In 1,000-member units, we don't wait a month to have a command staff meeting, right? We have one every week. Right? And I'm not saying that you need a city council meeting every week, but in order to get ahead of, or at least keep pace with the things that are going on in this town, you might want to have a meeting a little more often. And then when the public gets frustrated that maybe they don't feel like they're being heard, or it's taking a long time and sluggish for what they're concerned about to be acted upon. I mean, we have a month between meetings.
Back in the day, when it first started, the water board and the city vote, we had meetings once a week. You didn't have much choice. Okay. Let's talk about last meeting. We were discussing the roll-offs every month or so. So we got to the point where that was just going in free-for-all. The thing I wanted to do was raise my hand and say, well, look, these guys are coming in here and using their trucks and trailers and loading up the dumpster. That's not allowed anybody else to use the dumpster. Quit letting those people that come in there with trucks and trailer full load up the dumpster. Just let pickup truck full come in. That's one thing. Then we get to the point where we couldn't even raise our hand and say anything. So we need to address that situation where if I've got a comment or a thought that we could give to the council in the middle of one of these discussions, we just need to figure out how we can govern that situation through that part of the agenda cycle. We have a motion, we have a second, and then open it for discussion to the people or on the floor. That means council or the public themselves. So we need to figure that out.
Do y'all want to, would y'all like to let Mike kind of get some responses, or just keep going and going and going?
I think everybody wants to talk, as they say.
Can I just clarify real quick, ask a question real quick?
Okay, let me clarify a couple of issues for you. One, prior to 2000, you had absolutely no right to speak to the council. In 2000, they passed laws because the Supreme Court made a ruling and said, you have a right to free speech. You get to speak to the city council or governing body. Okay, so from that, we've evolved, and in 2020, we actually have a definitive rule coming down from the state saying this is how we interpret what the court is telling us to do. And you do get the right to speak. It tells you when, and it tells you we get to determine, I'm using a very royal term, okay, the government gets to determine the amount of time for that. Some places it's 3 minutes, some places it's 5, some it's 10, okay? And that's what we really, really are concerned with here is if you're going to talk, how much time are you going to get to talk? Also, it specifically says that once you've said something, you don't get to speak again until everyone else has spoken, then you get a turn to come back up. It's kind of a two-liner in the middle of the law that says you get to do that. But you can come back and reassert what you wanted to say. So there's plenty of law dictating how we should be running the meeting, but we don't have anything substantive in the city to say we want to follow the law. And we want to get some decorum in here where we have an orderly meeting, but the public gets to address what their concerns are. Another thing is I did extensive research into the language. If any of you know anything about the law, when they put words into a statute or a court case or anything like that, the words really come down to their actual definition. When they say address, it was easy for me to be able to come up and find out that address means you get to stand at the podium and say what your concern is. There's no dialogue. And we have a lot of that goes on in our meetings. We have a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth and things like that. The citizens get up and say their piece, sit down, another citizen comes up and says their piece. As they go through all that, before anyone gets to speak again, all the other people, has anyone else got anything else to say? No. Mr. Smith, you have another comment to make. So you come up and you get your additional 3 minutes, okay?
Okay, Mike, did you want to say something first, or you want me to go and take a couple more citizens? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got him first. Okay, and then I'll
Real
come
quick,
in.
does anybody at the city, before we get off off the weeds, like what happened last meeting, mayor, council member, anybody, city staff, or is anybody looking to keep what we did last meeting? Because I feel like this whole thing is to find a happy medium where the citizens are heard. I just want to be clear on that. Is there anybody?
City.
That's not the city. Yeah, I'm asking about the city people. Is there anybody here from the city that wants to keep that format, or are we looking for a happy medium? Okay, that's all I want to say.
I'd like for all these people to be heard that came here.
That's why I'm passing the mic around for Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you. So I actually did like the meetings, kind of the idea of the last meeting. I know it didn't quite go exact because it was our first time trying it in a long time, but I understand the idea of having a presentation and then allowing for comments for anyone who signed up, because I know I'm probably one of the few people, but I do look at our agenda, maybe not the full packet, but I do look at the agenda items before I come to the meeting, mainly because we have busy lives, we work full-time, and there are some nights where I look at the agenda and go, okay, honey, do you really want to go to this meeting? There's nothing really contentious on this meeting. Are you sure? And, we make the decision. We still, a lot of times come, but if there is something contentious, then I'll let my husband know, we need to be at this meeting, we need to make our voices heard. At which point, if we continue with that form, I know that when I sign in for the evening, that I need to fill out that form and say, I'd like to speak on agenda item, whatever. And that way, after the presentation, my voice can be heard for my comment, if I still need it. Because I also know that after I've heard the presentation, maybe my concerns or questions have been answered, and I no longer need to make a statement. But I liked that presentation, comments, and then going into the motions.
Okay, so I have so much to say, it could take up the whole meeting, but I'll condense it. One of the problems with our country is that we're not in Washington, and all 352 million people can't go there to give their comments. So therefore, the lobbyists are the ones that influence the legislators. And that's probably the biggest problem. And then we all know that most of the big cities are pretty far separated from what the people want. And it's because the people don't have a voice. One of the very best things about Bruceville Eddy is that you have an atmosphere all these years where the people have had a voice, and where the city council has given people that message that we want you to show up at the meetings, we want to hear what you have to say, we take into consideration your opinion and the things you have to say. So it's disheartening and concerning but it's not disheartening because this meeting is good, where you can have public input. But I had a couple of questions, but you asked it. You wanted to know how the other members feel about how the people that are actually elected feel about lessening the ability of the citizens to speak. I wanted to know how and you'll answer this I'm sure after we're done, what is it that we've been doing right now or all these years that isn't following just because our format is a little different than what Crawford does, or what Rowena does, or what Houston does, in what way has the city been breaking the law? The other thing I wanted to say that Mr. Edmonston touched on is that when the items are on the agenda, sometimes as we're sitting in the audience, it's unfolding in front of us. And I might walk in not intending to speak on the fact that the water wells all need a lot of maintenance. But as information comes out, that prompts me to want to ask a question for clarification. Or sometimes people throw in their 2 cents. They want to give their opinion to the city council because the city council has always had an atmosphere where they solicited the opinion of the citizens. I think it would be a mistake to change that. So I might walk into the meeting and not realize that it was going to unfold that way. So the other thing I needed to know, I'm not trying to hog it, was, are we allowed to ask questions of the council members when we fill out the form? Or are we only there to give a statement? So basically it's 3 things. How are we not following the law? What can we do about if we don't fill out the card that we want to talk about something, but something unfolds, and it turns out we have something to say or a question to ask? And the next question is, are we here to ask questions of council members or the mayor? Or are we just there to give a statement? That's all I ask.
First of all, I'd like to address what Mr. McGrew said. That'll keep me from addressing it later. The state law might have been where they allowed you to speak after 2000. Before that, there was not a law that prohibited you from doing that. So it's always been that way here. We can always speak. What I do agree with is, I don't have to address that in a minute, is allowing everybody a chance to speak that wants to speak. And like you said, nobody else can speak again until they finish. Then limits the talks, because we've had them, and I call it ratchet jawing, on and on, and you be here 3 or 4 hours. I don't like that. And I don't think the people do. So thank you for saying what you said. Good evening to all of you. Council persons, mayors, and city administrators. My name is James E. Tyler. Most of you know me. Some of you do not. But I want to make a few comments because it's important to me. I'm here to be of help, not criticize, but inform, to help and support our hope. I truly did not want to be here tonight. I'm not in good health, and I can only see out of one eye, so I had to write it down because I didn't be a long-winded fast tonight, because this gad libs are wet. I'm retarded from public service, retired, so to speak. And I handed the ball off to you, city council members. And I felt like I put it in good hands. That don't mean I have to agree with you all the time. But I trust you, and I vote for you. Or I don't. What I'm going to say is not no system, pulling my chain. It's about my qualifications to speak on this subject. Speaking from experience and now as a citizen, which I am, that you represent. I've been involved in the city for 52 plus years, starting in the fall of 1973 with a petition I presented to Judge Bob Thomas, a little crippled man, for voting corporation that followed in April of 1974. I've served 18 plus years on the city water board, 2 terms on the city council, which 6 months I sat as the city secretary. We didn't have an administrator then. The city secretary did it all. The finances, kept it going, utilities, whatever. And I'll tell you something, that was quite an experience for me. Even though I was knowledgeable in certain things. But the mayor had resigned because he hadn't made 5 meetings in a row. And the city secretary was fired because of incompetence. And the mayor pro tem said, James, you gonna do it. The bills had to be paid, that's all I did. I did the best I could, but it was quite an experience because we were in a period of growth and transition and dissension. It was not easy. 2 years on the BEDC, 3 years on the school tax commission board, and administrative aid cemetery, 20 years. Majority of my life. I've already. Public servants are held to a different standard, whether you realize it, like it or not. It is akin to pastors and teachers. Fair enough, as these people have a great influence on society. Changing lives, our health, our safety, our welfare, yes, our future. Last but not least, our mourning. Most of the time, it is a thankless job, but it is rewarding. A wonderful gift to our community, as it comes from within our hearts and our souls. A unique, humbling gift of gratitude to serve. Difficult. It is not about us as servants. As Apostle Paul wrote, it is about serving others. But as elected representatives of them, we are their voice. And if you don't have your pulse on that voice, you don't know what's going on, what they want. It has always been that the people were allowed to share their thoughts, ideas, hopes, dreams, and goals, and meetings. Without that, the council cannot feel the pulse of the people we represent. We're still a small community that has compassion, relationships. Like the people said who want to go to Mo knows everybody. Some's got very personal relationships, some will just acquaintances, but we know. It's an honorable thing you, as administrators, do. Your administration have access to information and papers that the general public does not have. Therefore, always strive to do what is in the citizens' best interest, even in the long term, even if it is unpopular. And it is sometimes, because they don't have the information. Because they might not understand why. But you do. As public servants, we work and serve them. Not in reverse. You really see? We work for them, not in reverse. I appreciate every one of you serving, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Next.
The city of Bruce Milady has, as far as I know, always allowed the citizens to interact with the city council members whenever they deliberate an agenda item. As per section 551.0012 definitions of the Texas Government Code, deliberation means a verbal or written exchange between a quorum of a governmental body or between a quorum of a governmental body and another person concerning an issue within the jurisdiction of the governmental body. According to section 551.007B of the Texas Government Code, a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. With that said, we the people have a right to have a verbal exchange with the city council members during their consideration of an agenda item, allowing the citizens to inform the governing body of our views. Remember, the people elected the city council members to to represent them. Therefore, all citizens should be heard and allowed to deliberate with their elected officials on any agenda item up for consideration. Public input helps local officials hear a greater variety of perspectives, which leads to better informed decisions, especially regarding community issues. Allowing the public to speak fosters transparency and helps build an emotional connection between the city council and the citizens, which increases trust in local leadership and prevents resentment and frustration, which can build when citizens feel ignored and are silenced. In closing, I respectfully request that the City of Bruce Valletti City Council, at their next regular meeting, act upon allowing the public to deliberate with them during the discussion/consideration phase of any agenda item.
Next. Anybody else want to say something?
Ditto, Roxanne, that was excellent. I've lived in this community my whole kids were here, grandkids. And the heart of this community has been its people. And its people being able to voice how they felt about what went on here to their representatives and having the right to hold them accountable. The only way that that can happen is if there's good communication. And we need to keep that available. I may not speak for everybody in Bruce Valletti, but a big portion of them, because half of them can too. We don't care what other cities do. We don't care what's politically correct or culturally acceptable, because we are Bruce Valletti. And we, as a community, make our own decisions for what we feel is best for our community. And we want our representative government to hear how we feel about things. And if we're not allowed to speak, fully speak, if we're delegated to 5 minutes before the meeting, we can't interject what the questions we have, because many times, like when you had the card of, well, I agree with this, I disagree with this. I don't know what I agree with or disagree with until I've heard all the discussion. Like last meeting, there was a large discussion about the roll-offs. Well, a lot of information came out when Gene began to speak. He had information that you guys didn't have, and he had information that we didn't have. So a lot of us had questions and good ideas that you could have considered that we never got to say. We were very frustrated, and I'm sure you heard about that later last week, because we didn't get to speak. We felt like we were told by the city council, you need to sit down and shut up and be good little boys and girls while we have a staff meeting. That's how we felt. I know I did. And deliberation is good. Debate is good. It's healthy. It's what this country was built on, was the voice of the people being able to speak and say how they feel and what they think about things. How can you guys represent us if you don't know how we feel about it? You know, we voted you in, but how are you gonna, you can't be at our houses and, all the time. And we're not a big city. We have people, usually, maybe 5 or 6 people that will actually ask questions or make a comment. A large city, you can't do that. I understand that you have and the people that gripe a lot but never have solutions. So I'm gonna give a recommendation that y'all can think about, maybe trying this or using part of it. During the deliberation time, if you raise your hand, you need to be recognized by the mayor, like this per the law. You go up and you ask your question, if you have a question, and the council answers it, you sit down. If you have a comment or an idea you'd like to give, then give that person, they raise their hand, I have a comment. The mayor says, okay, you go to the podium, give them 2 minutes to state their, or 3 minutes, whatever y'all feel like would be good, that the council and the mayor feel like would be good, to give their comment, to give their idea, and then y'all discuss it and maybe act upon it. Now, that'll be up to the council, but it gives people the ability to ask their questions, to make their statements, but it's still in an orderly fashion. You don't want to sermon. I understand that, I'm a preacher. We can preach. People can get on their high horses and all of that. But we do need the ability to speak during the deliberation, because I would never fill out a card like that because I don't know what I'm for or against yet. I wouldn't be able to give you an answer for that. We've always had in place where if you had a comment about something that's not on the agenda, then you had 5 minutes. We've always had that. That's always been part of how we run our meetings. So that's not even an issue. The issue is being able to speak, our concerns and our questions be answered when the agenda item is being deliberated. That's the issue, is we don't want to be shut up. We want to have input. And that's what has upset people so much. It has upset me. I mean, I feel like it's not about we, the council, or we, the mayor, and city manager, and city secretary. It's about we, the people. We, the people. You work for us. We don't work for you. And that's where the beef, I think, really is. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I agree with a lot of what you said. Okay, when you have meetings, and council meetings, I spoke to several people, and they were very concerned that they were being cut off, they weren't gonna get to speak, that they had a right to speak to the council and to discuss with the council what was going on. And it caused me actually to end up spending a whole lot of time going through the books to find out, where did this all come from? And like you said, we've always done it this way where you can speak. Well, it's not always been that way. Okay, actually, until Senate Bill or House Bill 2840, it says specifically in there, prior to this bill, you didn't have a right to speak at all. You came and you sat, and you observed the government being made. Now, we didn't follow that rule, but in fact, that's the way it was. And they've addressed this. They said you do get a right to speak. And I believe that I want to hear what the people have to say. Okay? What I do want to see is structure. And that's really what we're here for more than anything else. Not whether people can speak, but structure. So when somebody comes up to speak, then they get 3 minutes to speak. And then moving on to somebody else. We don't have 5, 10, 15, 20-minute dialogues over an issue that's before the city council. Okay, all that does is, after 3 minutes, you're probably not really listening anyway. You just, it's been said more than once. And so, my deal is I want to see structure. I want to see where it says we open the meeting, you get to make comments that are not on the agenda, okay? We won't address those comments, but we can think and we can schedule them for a future meeting, but your voice has been heard. Prior to an agenda item, when the agenda item is announced, before a vote is taken, before a motion is on the floor, you can come up and ask questions on that, okay? That's the way it's designed in the law. I didn't write this, I'm reading it, okay? And so you actually get to say what you want to say on the item, okay? And then we make a motion. You might talk us out of making even a motion. Okay? But the idea is as long as there's an opportunity to get your voice heard and it's structured properly, the meeting will run smoothly. And that's what I want to see out of this.
So, I really wanted to address this when Mr. Talbert was here, but many of y'all have been on this council when the new gun laws came into effect. Everybody sees that I carry to every city council meeting. The law now says that is permissible, right? When all this started with this new law about open meetings and license to carry individuals being able to carry, Mr. Talbert was adamantly against it. And he voiced that. But through dialogue between myself and him and others, Ricky, we've had some good conversations. He came up to me one day and says, I understand where you're coming from. So those conversations, I think, are necessary to building the community, building trust in the community. And there was a couple questions I had, but I wanted to get that statement out that I don't remember, it was a conversation we had in the parking lot, but it was one of, wow, somebody who was very much against it. I think maybe the conversation that I had helped him to better understand. But it was a nice thing to experience. But anyway, a couple questions. When it says reasonable regarding time limits, right? Who defines what is reasonable? And what is reasonable for one item may not be reasonable for another item. I recently, sometime back, I spoke at a city council meeting in McGregor. And to my surprise, I was up there speaking for 10 minutes. They didn't have a time limit. They may have now after I spoke for 10 minutes. But I got my point across. And so the next question again is why limit to 3 minutes? Now, I've spoken at the Texas legislature, and 3 minutes is not a lot of time. I learned real quick, do not veer away from your written statement, or you will not get out what you want to say. Luckily, I caught the attention of Senator Birdwell, and he asked a few questions later, so I got some extra time in. No, I didn't watch the meeting. I had just gotten home from work that day. But it seems like there was a lot of misinformation, and this dialogue we're having right now has put to rest some of that misinformation. And one last thing, I agree, don't compare Bruce Folletti to other cities. We're our own city. I've only been here since 2011, but my wife's been teaching here for quite a few years at the schools, and I've been a part of the community in certain areas, and I go to the city council meetings when I'm able. A lot of times when I am home, I'm gone a lot. Um, I have a pretty strict reign. I'm gone more than 6 months out of the year. So it's either keep the wife happy or voice my opinion at a city council meeting. But that's about all I have right now, and I appreciate you taking the time to have this meeting and to listen to us.
I just have, okay.
Okay, Ricky Williams, as your city council member, y'all elected me to listen to y'all. And how can I listen to y'all if I can't hear what you're saying? You know, and as been spoken here tonight, you can say what you want to say at the very beginning of the meeting or before uh, the council, when the council brings item 7 up. But before they even make a motion on it, because they have to make a motion and a second before the council can deliberate on it. So we need to hear from you after deliberation with the council, and the reason being is because what goes on, there's a discussion between the council members, as Ms. McLaughlin said, you might change your mind about something, or might think about something, and you might, maybe we made a motion, and you say, well, wait, raise your hand, and you say, well, what about this? Well, you know what? You might be right. Maybe we need to amend that motion. So we're just doing our duty by listening to the people who elected us and allowing them to speak. I don't want to silence anybody. And what happened at this last meeting, I'll just have you to know it. I was blindsided. I had no idea that was going down. It shouldn't have went down without council, without council being brought in on the loop on that. But I wasn't anyway. I can't speak for them. Anyway, the main thing is, I want to hear from the people. Thank you.
I have a disjointed question. Um, when y'all are up there and I'm looking on the agenda and it's like, and you're saying this, and this with no discussion, we're just gonna vote on it. Do you know what I'm talking about when you do that?
Oh, the consent.
Oh, the consent
The
agenda.
consent, what, okay, but, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really separate and apart. That's like the finances or something like that.
Oh,
It's usually stuff that's very.
We can pull it. Council member can pull it.
oh, okay, you can, but
Yes,
usually
ma'am. It's
it's
usually
not.
just like mostly council, approval of the minutes, approval of the monthly budget, what we spent. It's like housekeeping items, mostly
Okay,
what
I'm
the
just
consent agenda
curious.
is.
Yeah, but if you were to see something like that, if you seen that on, something on the consent agenda that you wanted to have a question about, you could ask a council member, would you mind pulling that? And a council member could pull it. And then we could talk about it.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well,
What does it mean to pull it?
but in other words, we might agree, it might be, the minutes, the, might be the minutes, or it might, and the finances might be on there. And let's say that you had a question on the finances, if you had a question on the finances,
But what works is our city is willing to have us come together and us address the issues with the council people and the concerned citizens, the ones listening on YouTube, okay? So we do have an opportunity to come together, but this is where I'd like for the laundry to be aired. Not at a coffee shop, bumping your gums, on Twitter, on Facebook, because that gets a lot of misinformation.
It really does.
A lot of misinformation, and it hurts the city. So I would like to encourage people to restrain. We have these council meetings, the council is ready, willing to listen to us, how we move forward. We're going to be going through a process, okay? And like Joy said, they've always listened to the citizens, and that's the one thing I've been proud of about this small community. I wasn't born here, I'm a transplant. But they have always listened to the citizens, and I think the citizens felt like the last 2 weeks our voice was taken away. And the mayor and the city administrator and the city council are willing to listen to us, as they always have. But let's do it at the city council meetings, and let's do it like meetings like this, not out on the streets, but right here where we can do something about it.
A lot of people that do that, they don't even come to the meetings. They just get on the fence post and say all kind of
They
crazy
like to
things.
brag about it.
All
They
kinds
get
of
on there and
things to
stick to
say.
it, they'll put a fence post that should not ever be on
It
there.
doesn't make sense.
You're correct. Fence posts is the world's worst. Thank you, Brent.
I agree with Mr. McGrew about, I mean, the reason for tonight really is to develop structure and codify it, and then city council will vote on whatever solutions come to. But I just have a question, half statement about what is the city council member, and by extension, the way I run our board, the EDC board, in asking the public for an opinion. For example, I'm in a board meeting and we're talking about X development, and I see a city engineer over there, or I see one of the council members in the audience, and I want to, as the person sitting up there, ask a question to someone sitting out there. Legally, can we do that? And I think that whatever solution we come up with, maybe we need to put that in there so it's clear too, that the city council, it's a two-way street. They can have the mayor, city council, EDC board members can engage with the public and ask questions. And maybe we need to put a time limit on that, or some rules about that. But I think the people sitting up there have a need sometimes to reach out to the public. On our board, there's only 3 or 4 people ever show up out of the public. But, city council this place can be full. But I think the city council elected officials should have some mechanism in order to elicit public opinion.
And that will be yours.
So, as Lawrence talked about, the scope of this meeting was really to be broader, and I don't want to steal his thunder, broader than just what happens in the meetings. That's certainly part of it, but it's also broader than that as to how do we get to the meetings, how do we decide agenda, things along that line. But it sounds like to me, which we can still discuss, it sounds like to me that the talking about what's happening in the meeting is of utmost importance to y'all, and I certainly get that. So let me just tell you just really briefly about myself. I've represented cities for over 20 years, easily have attended over 1,000 council meetings. I was a council member in Cedar Park, which is a home rule city, and so got to sit on that side of the dais as well for several years, and so that was interesting. And I strongly believe in our democratic republic form of government. Strongly believe that. And we talked about DC, and you talked about being down in the legislature. I've been down in the legislature more time than I like to admit to talk to them. But the small cities, one of the reasons I enjoy representing cities is because of the relationships that you can build with the small cities, because it does give an opportunity where in Cedar Park, the most we ever had signed up to talk on an item was 120, and 71 people ended up speaking on the item. We were there for 7 hours. So bigger city, obviously. So I understand that it probably would not be an issue in Bruceville Lady, but that's the reason why you have some structure, as was discussed. So I will just tell you from my experience, what I or 6 home rule cities, but most of them, a dozen or so, are general law cities. So they're about y'all's size. So that's where experience can come from. And so this, and not everything that I say may fit for Bruce Coletti, but I just want to kind of give you a template. Like, for example, you have in front of you the quorum ordinance that pretty recently did for the city of Marion. They have an item in there that for an agenda item, you have to have 3 council members who requested. I don't agree with that. I think that it should be 2. And the reason why we want you to, the reason why I think it's 2 is because that way you know you're going to have a motion and a second. If you're not going to have 2 that want to see it on there, then kind of what's the point? So anyway, but they went with 3. I disagree with that. So what I'm saying is, just because I say something doesn't mean that you have to go with it. But this is the flow that I like to see with council meetings. So you have your public comment period at the beginning, whether it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. And reasonable is really in the eye of the council. And so reasonable could be both ways. Reasonable, you don't want to give them 30 seconds because that's not enough to even get your name and your address out. But you also don't want to see it 10 minutes because if you do have 15 people signed up, then all of a sudden you're having these really, really long council meetings at 10 minutes, even 15. So reasonable is, and I've never seen 10, 5. Normally, I'll tell you what I see a lot of times it's 3, but then you can request an additional 2 if you need it, and it can be granted by the chair. So I see that pretty often. But so at the beginning, you start with the public comment period. Oh, so let's back up. So the reason for the sign-up cards, and that sign-up card that Lauren showed, that looks very much, if you're familiar with the state, that's very much like it is when you sign up to go talk at the state of Texas. With regard, you're going to talk to the legislature. You're for or against. You just want to. And the reason why that's important is because it helps the chair know, okay, I've got 11 people to talk about this item, at least 11 people, right? And if you decide to sign off and you say, I don't want to speak, but I'm in opposition or I'm in favor, then the mayor will read, we got 3 cards from Ms. Smith, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Wilson, and all 3 of them are in favor of item number 7. That will be read on the record. So that's one of the reasons why you do the cards. So you get in, you do the public comment period, and during that period, that's, and it depends how you want to do it, but what I like to see is that's for items that aren't on the agenda. And as Lawrence put, are not on the agenda, are not on the agenda. And you'll hear why, and why I believe that in a second.
I'll flip over to its agenda so you can kind of have see like a format, I guess.
And so, right, and so those, and in that, if you look at TOMA, Texas Open Meeting Act, it says what the council's allowed to do in this situation. So if you're asked a question to the council or to the staff, they can give you a statement of fact, they can ask you a question for clarification, or they can deliberate, since we're, use that word, to decide whether we want that item to be on the agenda for the council, wants it to be on the agenda for a future agenda. Now, I understand it is frustrating when you only have a meeting once a month, because, yes, sir.
I was going to say, can they say, can you go speak with the administrator, for example, and see basically?
Absolutely, yes.
Just like, a lot of times I want to offer that, just send them to me and let me take care of it. A lot of times we'll just do that.
Right, absolutely, or talk to the building clerk, or,
Correct, right. A lot of times that's what it is. And if it isn't something that I'm going to drive, no, I'll shoot you an email. Hey, I visited with so-and-so, here's what it is. We're going to have to put this on the agenda. Right.
So it's good to visit with you first.